Hello guys. On 23rd of February we have what we call day of a holiday, the day of Russian or Soviet Red Army, and now it's just the day of army. But in fact, the army was never established at 23rd of February. So it's like the Soviets when they took over and they established this holiday. The Soviets, when they took over, had a couple of battles with Germany on the Eastern Front. So it was like near Pskov or something like this. So nothing significant in archives was found since then. So probably it's not that it was some type of huge battles there. So probably it was just the front line stand-in, but nothing significant actually on both sides. Nobody mentioned anything like this, any great battles at that time. So it's like after the January they signed a treaty in Brest and gave up to Germany, which gave up and was defeated by the Entente, and Russia was the Entente Union member. In fact, Anta also is very interesting name. But so it was proclaimed itself a defeated nation. So Bolsheviks signed this treaty and gave up much of the land and territory. So it was like even Finland established as an independent state after this. So it's like it was a great occasion. So just imagine the German banks were sponsoring Lenin and some of the revolutionaries, and then immediately they were not fighting after Bolsheviks revolution in October, and for 3 months it was just a simple rotation of the troops and something like this. So nobody was actually having any fights, and then they signed the treaty and signed a defeat with Germany, which was already defeated by Entente. So it's like, how can you possibly do something stupid like this? Only because you maybe a paid shields. So they were paid by Germans. So it's not like we supposed to believe in everything I say, but it's like a bunch of evidence of this funding, because they were like hanging around in Switzerland, Austria, and all this time. So it's like they were funded by some American bankers. So even they had a pass to the Finland from New York. So it's like very interesting situation. But nobody actually says that they were agents of America or something like this, or Germany. But they had been funded for several years and they were hiding at that. So it's not like some Jewish conspiracy that led them. So probably not. It was German banks and American banks and all those players that established the Federal Reserve System. So like because there is another conspiracy theory that the Emperor Nikolai II was one of the founder, as the Chinese emperor also was one of the founder of Federal Reserve, and he like funded like 25% of gold backup and something like this, and he sent a bunch of gold and it disappeared around Gibraltar. So it's like very interesting, right? And then we have this defeat. It's probably a paid defeat. It's a payback to the Germany. So they would send their troops to the Western Front, not fighting Russians, and save their lives and their troops. But I don't know if this actually worked, but it worked for Finland and some territories that Germany grabbed after this defeat, even Poland. So, um, but after the defeat of Germany, everything was reestablished by the treaty that Germany signed, and Germany was also a losing side in this so-called uh, World War One. But in fact, what I was talking about is that the Bolsheviks came to power in October, and Tsar and the Emperor Nikolai II was signed to quit the throne in February. That's why it was called February Revolution. And who was in front of this revolution? It was not the Bolsheviks, it was Mensheviks and the social revolutionaries, um, social revolutionaries. So those who were for socialism. So it's like they were also studying many different ideologies. It's not only the well-known ones. They had some strange guys who were like local Russian ideologists, like Bakunin and different other people. So it's like we had a bunch of authors but then. So it's not like it was a totally Bolsheviks' goal to. They were lucky to get in power in October, and for several months, like 8 months or something, the country was in the hands of those who made the February Revolution. So it's like it's their total fault to say that they ruined the state of Russian Empire. So, and they lost their concurrence to Bolsheviks, who just made a coup and a riot in October and just kicked them out of the government. And that's it. They just kept. It was just a riot, and so they gathered the telegraph post office and some stations and stuff like this. So like the main transportation routes and the telephone and the post office, so they could control the radio and stuff like this, and inform the people that those who were in power just signed the retreat. So it's like very simple plan to control and to do it. So it's not also that everybody of the first commissioners were the Jews. It's like 15 personnel commission, and only 11 of them were the Jews. And the head one was Lenin, who was just 25% Jew. So I'm not like saying that it had no Jewish influence at all. And probably those people were not a religious people, because communism totally betrays religions. It says that it's opium. So could we just, put them in the same line as all those Jews that we know, who are maybe religious sometimes, who may be going to synagogues and stuff like this, who is, following the Jewish traditions? Were they followers of Jewish traditions? No, they were not. They were betraying their tradition, and they were just totally Russified for these and hundreds of years that the Jews were lived in Russia. Jews were not Jews at that time. Most of them were Christianized. So it's like if we go in each and every person, we'll find a bunch of interesting information. So just believe me, nothing is that simple, and it's not like totally Jews, because the head one was not a Jew. In fact, he was like 25% Jew. So it's like, well, whatever. And the February Revolution was like even less Jewish than the Bolsheviks one. So it's like, of course, there were Jews involved, but just like every other Russian inhabitants. So it's like we cannot just say it's like Bolsheviks were totally Jews, because if we try to find out who were Bolsheviks actually, then most of those Bolsheviks were the Tsar army officers that were, leaning towards the Red Army after the fall of Tsar. So they like found out that those revolutionaries in February is trying to ruin the country, and they changed their minds, and they didn't fight the Bolsheviks. So they tried to establish their new careers in this Bolshevik army. So they were just the same Russian officers that we had before. And all the most of the heroes like Tukhachevsky and who else? Tukhachevsky was a Polish officer actually. Who else? Well, if we name most of them were officers in the Tsar army. Like Budyonny also was. He was not an officer, but he was a sergeant or something like this. So Budyonny was the head of cavalier officers. So it's like, those who ride the horses, and they have machine guns at that time. So it was very, very powerful army troop. So, well, whatever. So the Red Army was established not on 23rd of February, and the day that we celebrate it has nothing to do with it. But you know, it's hard to believe that everything that was created during the USSR was a fault of some single nation. It's not. Like for 30 years, the Soviet Union was controlled by those who we now know as Ukrainians. For like 25 years, it was controlled by a Georgian Jew who was Joseph Stalin. He was a Georgian Jew, and so it's like 50 years it wasn't controlled. It was controlled by different Georgians, Ukrainians, and like for just 20 years it was controlled by those who know as Russians. So it's like a multinational country, huge multinational country. In fact, it had one of the largest territory, and it was one of these countries that left on the ruins of Tartaria, as you know. So as the Tartaria was multinational, so was Russian Empire, so was the Soviet Union. So thanks a lot for following and watching. I hope you like this talk. I hope you enjoyed this information, because I like to correct what the others try to spread as rumors. So just research the real information. Thanks a lot for watching. See you later.